Hello, everyone. I think we can get started. Thank you for joining our panel discussion today on the topic of the revenue strategies for the European associations. My name is Ksenia, and I'm part of GlueUp's team based here in Europe in Budapest in Hungary. Let's start from the introduction of our panelists. So we start from Ioannis Pallas, who is the Managing Director of the European Society of Association Executives. Ioannis has been managing the SAE since October 2018. Originally born in Greece, and he's based in Brussels since 2009. He gained experience in advocacy, consulting, and development projects evaluation. He is a graduate of the Executive Masters in International Association Management from the Solvay Business School, focusing on governance and strategy for international associations. Let's welcome our second panelist, Thibault de Barzé, the Vice Chairman and General Manager at the Payments Association in EU, based in Luxembourg. Thibault was formerly the CEO of the Key Trade Bank in Luxembourg for 5 years, and he has over 20 years of experience in the financial sector. Thibault is a guest speaker in the lecture at the University of Luxembourg on managing financial brands in digital era topics. And since October 2019, he has participated as a weekly guest speaker on the Belgian news TV channel LN24 as an economist columnist. Last but not the least, the moderator of today's session is Eric Schmidt, the CEO, the co-founder of GlueUp. With 10 offices around the world, GlueUp supports associations, chambers of commerce, and generally membership-based organizations in creating stronger, smarter relationships with their communities. And as a builder in heart, Eric has founded several ventures focused on community and access. And he also owns and operates the iCode School in Northern Virginia, helping students to develop their critical tech skills and confidence for the future. I will pass it to Eric as being the moderator. Yeah, we can get started.
Great, thank you, Ksenia, and welcome everybody. Happy to join all of you this great day, talking about, of course, revenue strategies and growing associations. Big thank you to Ioannis and Thibault for joining us to really dive into this topic. This is something that, throughout our, team across the world, associations, chambers of commerce, and everybody who's member-based and also, tends to qualify under the nonprofit status, always have these same challenges of growing their teams, growing their organizations, and really trying to achieve their missions with limited revenue. So we thought, again, trying to help and, think about new ways is really something that GlueUp is able to do. As Ksenia has mentioned, and many of you are familiar, GlueUp obviously has built a tool, platform, a software to help really bring all that information and basically the operation of an organization together into one place. And over the last year, we spent a lot of time building our CRM capabilities to really think about revenue and revenue growth for the organization. So whether you're managing new sales opportunities, whether you are trying to sell new sponsorships at events, at other places where you're able to think about a sponsor logo and really putting it out there for the sponsor to be able to get value, but also the organization to drive revenue. In the world of corporate, sales is just part of the organization. It's part of the operational process, and people are thinking about, how do I build a sales team to help drive revenue? And that's really the revenue generation of the organizations that exist. And there is a defined sales process, and things look like they do because they are really thinking about driving revenue to increase profits. Now, of course, in the world of nonprofits, the thing we obviously know is you're not supposed to make money. But that's what we want to talk about today, because there is that perception where you shouldn't make money and be a nonprofit, but there is a world in which that can coexist. So we're going to dive a little bit into that today to really help everybody who's joining us think about, what can I do with my organization, and what strategies can we build upon that can help us add 2, 3, 4 people to our head count to help us achieve our mission, but also think about ways that are going to be able to give everybody the opportunity to really, again, drive mission, because that's what obviously the organization is trying to do. So, Ksenia obviously introduced our panelists, but I'm going to give them a second just to add a few things about themselves and how they have been helping to think about revenue strategies within inside their organizations. Anis, you wanna go first?
Sure. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you for having me. Happy to contribute some of the insights that I might have collected as a manager of the European Society of Association Executive. But the good thing also with ESA is that it gives me, and that's one of the reasons why I love my job, gives me a good strategic point of view from about what is happening throughout Europe when it comes to different sizes, types, and industries in different associations and other not-for-profits. So happy to kick us off. I believe that when it comes to revenue diversification, it's becoming much more of a need nowadays for associations. On the one hand, we are very much pressured because of prices increasing and inflation and indexation in some countries like Belgium have driven prices very high. And on the other hand, we have technology that is changing the way that we operate very fast. So on the one hand, we are pressured to do more with less resources. And on the other, we have all these new opportunities that are opening up towards us. So I think that continuing doing the same things that we did for decades, our associations are not going to be able to continue being sustainable and thrive. In order to continue responding to our mission and vision for our organizations, we need to innovate and we need to think of new solutions.
Absolutely. Well, welcome.
Yeah, just one additional word of context because it's important for what follows is that the Payments Association EU, we are a business club of companies that are active in the payments world. So amongst our most famous members that you guys all know, we have Visa, we have MasterCard, we have PayPal. Those are the companies that contribute to our association. And of course, a lot of purely European players such as BBC Bank in France and others. Now I must say that the most striking challenge are, in a way, the traditional challenges of a B2B world, right? We are in the B2B business. And I don't make any difference. And what I'm using every day are the techniques that I've acquired working in B2B roles in the telecommunication industry. And obviously, one of the most striking challenges in today's organizations is to find the right decision maker that can make a decision about joining an association. Because actually, many people project about what an association is. Is it a purely ethical non-profit thingy, or is it a business platform? And of course, it's always a bit of both angles. And what I'm very surprised of is that when we talk about the actual budget that contributes to our association, it's extremely different. Sometimes it comes from PR, sometimes it comes from marketing, sometimes from sales department, sometimes from the public affairs department. And yeah, this is where, a simple LinkedIn research won't do because you won't find the right person because you don't have the sufficient knowledge of your targeted organization in terms of who is interested to actually participate into an association. So that's my opening word.
I think obviously our hope is everybody participates in associations, right? And growing that pool is certainly we all hope happens. But again, obviously associations over the past many years have had ups and downs depending on the economy and certainly other things that are parallel to that. I guess coming back, as you look at as you think about associations in general, and maybe some of the things that you all have experienced. How do you look at some of the biggest challenges when it comes to thinking about new sources of revenue and really trying to grow your organization? And obviously, you guys have done that, certainly with your industry that has been growing. How do you think about that and the challenges that you all face?
Well, first of all, Eric, we are relatively young because some associations are now 100 years old. So we are only 5 years old. And today we are at around a bit less than 100 members. And we consider that reaching a critical size. And of course, I think that's the main point for many organizations. What is the critical size you need to achieve so you can comfortably cover your fixed costs and you can grow from there. And of course, we have an additional challenge, Ioannis and I, is that we are European organizations. So there's the whole question about which countries should you target? Do you have to be present in every country? At which frequency and everything? So what we are trying to do on our end is to have a very clear definition of what are the basic services that are being covered by the standard membership fee. That means that anything we do extra is either nice surprise, cherry on cake for the member, or that we have to sell them something special, a special sponsoring package, the sponsorship of a working group, the sponsorship of a light conference, and those things have to be ordered and paid. Otherwise, it's a big mix, it's a big blur, and I think it's the recipe for disasters which I've witnessed in other associations.
That is not easy. But and I guess just on that point, as you think, as you talk about sponsorship of committees, are these ideas that you all have sort of derived over time and have evolved, or how has that sort of transpired for you?
Yes, we have tried to take inspiration from, we have a sister association in the UK, which is a bit older than us. So obviously we benefited from their experience, but sometimes many requests come from the member themselves. And they say, hey, Thibaut, we want to appear as thought leader on this topic, or we have an urgent problem discussing with government officials on that. And then I tell them, okay, guys, I can do stuff for you, but this is how we can do it. It has to be a special project, special meeting, special working group, but I'm not going to do this if it's not funded. So, so that's very clear. We're non-profit, but I cannot afford to lose money. So this is why, I mean, every good idea has to be funded. Otherwise, it's not a good idea. That's what I tell my team as well.
And as you think about the associations that are part of your organization, obviously it's a very diverse group of organizations. How do you think about, those organizations and their challenges with new, sources of revenue and balancing that with what it is that they're trying to achieve?
Well, thank you for the question, Eric. Indeed, very large variety of organizations that we're looking into. I think that something that you touched upon earlier is that words that like sales and profit, they used to be taboos for associations. And I think that as we have seen in the last 10 years, association rapidly professionalizing and expanding in numbers, we see the need for the secretariats to be more business savvy and tech savvy in order to answer to those challenges. We see many associations struggling because traditionally they were dependent on only one source of revenue. For example, the most typical example is that health associations, they rely too much or even solely on their annual conference or biannual conference even, which creates a lot of risk. Trade associations, on the other hand, they rely too much on membership fees, and so they are overlooking other sources of revenue. Oftentimes, they are not even allowed by their members to seek other sources of revenue other than the revenue fees, and it's a way for bigger members to have control over some trade associations. So, breaking those taboos and making your members and especially volunteer leaders understand that the association is indeed not for profit, but that doesn't mean that we have to run on losses. Considering that the inflation is surging and we need to reinvent ourselves and invest the revenues, the reserves that we have, I think that the first thing to change is the mindset, and then start coming up with solutions and new ideas. But that goes hand in hand with a more professionalized and business savvy secretariat.
I guess as you talk about, being more professionalized in the organizations that you're seeing, how are you helping them think about there are ways, to drive that revenue and add to the organization rather than detract from it?
Well, I think that works very well in our case is we bring case studies to the spotlight. We have our events are peer-to-peer, so we rely on input coming from our members. We have lots of members in all over Europe, and oftentimes in our events about strategy, about revenue diversification, about adapting new technologies, we bring some new ideas, some case studies that work well, and some case studies that didn't work so well. So our members can be inspired by how other members solved similar problems. Of course, you cannot adopt the same solution, but you can be inspired and adapt it to your members' needs and the structure of your association. So we see indeed many associations moving from one source of revenue to multiplying sources of revenue. Some of them relying on membership fees, starting experimenting with paid events, with certification, accreditation. It can be different kinds of conferences or adding exhibitors to your conference, changing venues or getting sponsorship money. Sky's the limit. There are so many different ideas, and the more creative you are, the more of new things that you can think of adding to your revenue streams, and that goes also hand in hand with the ability that you have in the secretariat to absorb this new money and convince the volunteers that this is the right way to go.
Yeah. Any case studies that come to mind in relation to our conversation today?
Something that I touched upon just now, it's conference organizer that they didn't used to have exhibitors within the conference and now started to have exhibition booths, and that definitely boosted their conference. I see many trade associations that are turning their knowledge and education for the members into packages that they can sell to non-members as well. This way, they are already producing the knowledge. They're doing monitoring or reporting to the members on behalf of the members when it comes to what they find out in studies or interactions with the European institutions. So packaging it and being able to sell it as a product can create a new source of revenue.
Absolutely. See, well, the balance between growing income and staying true to the mission is something we often hear as a reason not to drive new revenue and create new opportunities. How have you all handled that conversation, maybe at your board level or, maybe with some of the organizations that participate in some of your events?
Well, first of all, we have started to organize our pricing structure. So we have 3 layers of memberships with different services included. So that makes it very clear for the members to understand what they're going to get for different level of pricing. So already it's a way to establish yourself as somehow commercial in the sense that you need revenues to grow. Otherwise, it won't work. And then, of course, the main argument against, we are operating over the whole of European Union. So obviously, we make it very clear that we cover very intensively around 10 countries out of the 27 EU countries, 5 countries a bit less extensively. And then if our members want to go to even other of the remaining countries, well, they need to fund our expansion by, for example, organizing or sponsoring an event in the countries where we are not present yet. So at least it's very clear for all the members to say, okay, the mission doesn't deviate. We are growing in terms of numbers, but also in terms of geographical coverage, which makes it very practical, very transparent for everyone to see, and also easier to decide at which pace we can grow.
For those 3 levels that you talk about, how do you differentiate between those 3 levels?
Basically, the more they pay, the more visibility they get within the association, and their name is associated with some of our events specifically. So it's really quite basic from a marketing point of view, and also it makes them very understandable. I think one of the big mistakes that some associations make is that they ask more money if the member is more rich or bigger. I mean, of course, it makes sense. We try to say, we ask you more money if you want more from us in terms of services. So even a medium-sized company can take a premium package with us because they want to grow, they want more from us. And a very rich established company can take a quite low profile because just they want to attend a few events to start with, and they don't need the additional brand exercise. And of course, the other model in which I don't want to fall is, that typical conferences are doing is to so clearly differentiate the buy side and the sell sides that the big attractive companies don't pay anything. And of course, the eager young companies that want to sell to them have to pay all the sponsorship prices. I don't want to fall into that either, because I think it's very unbalanced and it's not sane. So I want everyone to contribute according to what they want from us.
So, and I guess, what else, I guess, as you think about the organizations, that are part of your organization, what else have you seen that's been working, and what is the trend?
Well, I would say it's volatility. Before I get there, I have to echo what Thibault said. prices written in stone that are difficult to change, definitely is preferable. So I think that when it comes to the sponsors, especially of ESA, at ESA we have the similar model. The more they want to be engaged, the more they want to get out of the organization, the more they pay and the more the visibility they have. But indeed, we have been seeing a lot of volatility because of the geopolitical changes. We've been in a permanent crisis, let's say, since the financial crisis, and intensified, of course, with COVID. But now the geopolitical balance is shifting, which is causing a lot of concern to many of the sponsors. Some of them are in a better position, some of them are in the worst position. So I would say that the key there is to be agile and adaptive. You cannot expect that the same revenue will be coming from the same actors forever. So you need to be able to innovate. You need to be opening yourself to new markets, new types of sponsorships, new industries perhaps, and of course to reevaluate all the time, making sure that the sponsorships that you're offering or the other different revenue streams that you have initiated, they match the mission and vision and your strategic goals. Otherwise, they can be too much of a burden for both parties that are involved, sponsors and the secretariat.
Yeah, I'm going to take a question from online. And again, people feel free to, if you're online, feel free to drop any in questions. This is relevant to exactly what we're talking about, which is we also consider different tiers of members, of pricing for members, but we opted not to as it didn't seem fair to give more value benefits just because they can afford to pay more. How do you address members with less funds who want to pay more?
Well, I would, if I may take it, Thibaut, except if you want to
Sure,
jump
go
in.
ahead.
If I may jump in, I think that what members can afford shouldn't be so relevant. I think what members are able to pay, that is going to be relevant. If they ask for more services, they should be able to pay more, and that in my opinion, is what works well with ESA. Because, for example, our membership is an individual membership or an association membership. We don't have companies as members. We have individuals. The more individuals from the same organization want to get involved with ESA, the more the association has to pay, regardless of the association size or industry or budget. I hope that helps.
Thibaut, anything to add?
Well, what we try to do on our end is so our packages are always for 1 year, and obviously it's perfectly fine if they want to downgrade or upgrade from 1 year to another, or even to upgrade in the middle of a year. And the reason, for example, in our industry, we have a lot of fintechs that are asking for new funds from their shareholders. So suddenly they are out of money. So sometimes we give them a little grace period as diplomatically settled into the GlueUp system, which we love, of course. Or if they suddenly have more money because they just got a new round of funds, then we are very happy to propose them a lot of new ways to spend it. And of course, the name of the game for us is trying to spot within our members which are the ones which are in a good cycle or in a more downward cycle. And of course, above all, keep them as members, but potentially adapt the packages or be patient from time to time.
In respect to your membership tiers, let's say, somebody wants to go back and rethink their membership tiers and their membership structure. What are some of the things that you think that you did well in really creating those tiers that you've created, and maybe some things that you might rethink to help the organization if you had a chance all over again?
Well, for me, it's more, this is where GlueUp helps a lot, is sometimes the decision maker is not aware of all the things that we have done for them over an entire year. So as I said, we have different people within the organization that participate to our events. For example, we have a compliance working group and is the compliance officer. And on the other hand, I have the very hard sales business developers that are coming to my networking event. And maybe the decision maker is some kind of a marketing guy that never came to my event. So my whole job is to make him aware that his colleagues were very happy about the services that we provided. This is where I love GlueUp, because at least I can give him at the end of the year an exact list of all the things that his colleagues participated into. So for me, it's about making the things that they've used really of value, that they know that they got the value that they purchased. And of course, if they are not able to pay anymore, okay, that's fine. But at least the debate has to be very transparent about the fact that we delivered.
Obviously, that is a key message. Got to deliver at the end of the day to make sure people continue to come back. Onus, as you look at, across, and again, there's many different kinds of organizations depending on their structure, how they're designing membership. How do you and what kind of advice would you give to organizations who are rethinking their membership tiers and new ways to drive revenue from membership?
I say to test it out. It's important to ask our members what they expect, but also sometimes the members don't know what to expect, and they're very much welcoming being surprised positively by the Secretariat suggesting new solutions to their challenges. As challenges evolve, the solutions to those challenges should evolve as well, and we cannot be static in delivering the same offering with the same channels as we did in the past. For example, during COVID, we all of us embarked upon a digital journey, and we offered solutions online. Part of that still continues, and we need to keep with that. Other people are preferring in-person solutions. I would say that when it comes to the different tiers, introducing new tiers and introducing new services should go hand in hand with what the association can actually offer. Because it's one thing to overpromise things, and it's another thing to deliver them. So I see many associations initializing new services to their members, but not having the infrastructure to back it up. So making sure that there is enough investment in personnel and educating your personnel in the right way that will be able to address these issues is a big black spot, and so we have to be aware of it.
Let me pop to another question from an attendee here, which I think a lot of organizations struggle with. Is organizations with member dues. Obviously, one way you can directly increase revenue is increase your dues, every year. We know a lot of organizations don't do that. Organizations sometimes wait 5, 6, 7 years before they increase their member dues. What kind of advice would you give to folks who are sort of in that situation where maybe the dues were too low, and now they're rethinking their structure, and now they're rethinking maybe I need to increase my my membership dues? What would be a good way to go about that, and making sure that the members are okay with that?
It's a very delicate debate. We had it many times because, of course, one of the aspects are the authorization limits within companies. And of course, we know those are round numbers, typically 10K. So that's why one of our basic membership is at 9,900. And I know that if I go beyond 10K, I put myself into a lot of issues. So the way we've tried to circumvent that is, again, trying to sell maybe additional projects or a superior layer instead of increasing the price of the basic membership. And we've succeeded quite well because in the composition of our members, we have much more members now which have taken the premium package versus the standard package. So this is how we have dealt with it, but I'm not saying it's the perfect solution. I mean, obviously, every business should increase prices in line with inflation, but that's the way we have dealt with it, especially during COVID times, and still while transitioning in terms of the evolution of our offer.
And how did you sell that to them?
Basically, by telling them, if they put a bit more money, they will get much more than what they have today in terms of visibility and advantages. And therefore, it makes the decision much more easier than just saying, hey, we increase prices.
Similar for us. I have this slide that I like to use. I saw the services that ESA offered in 2018 and the services that we offer today. And in 2018, it's a single small dot, giving a couple of seminars per year. And now we have this huge array of activities that support our members. So last year in the General Assembly, we had the first discussion about raising membership fees after 20 years. Nobody raised any questions because we were able to demonstrate how many more services they get now in comparison to what they got in the past. So being able to show those hand in hand, explaining why the membership fee is increasing, where does that money go? I think that's a good strategy for convincing your members that have any doubts.
And for those conversations at the board level, because obviously going to the board is part of that, progress of pushing before you go out to members. what, were some of the detractors sort of, saying in regards to that, or was everybody on board right away?
In our case, I was very lucky because I said 20 years and lots of activities, but indeed, convincing the board members is the most difficult one because it's going to be the board members that are going to be asking the General Assembly for the increase. These are the people who will be getting most of the questions from the rest of the membership. In our case, it was very easy, but I understand that in many associations, especially my members from trade associations, they have a lot of difficulties convincing their board members. There it depends on who are the board members of your association. Are they the CEOs of the companies, or are they mid-management? If they're mid-management, I see that it works well if they try to convince the CEOs. If the CEO is convinced in a way that people described earlier, at the end of the year, showing exactly what kind of activities your members followed and how they profited from the organization, I think the discussion becomes more easy.
Generally, what's your advice on how far in advance that conversation should start?
Oh, early. I think, sorry, Thibaut, if I interject again, but I'll be very quick. In our case, it took a year. We announced it at the General Assembly of 2023 that we are entering into talks, and we are looking into raising the fees approved at the General Assembly of 24 and applied as of January 25. So it was a year and a half before it actually was applied.
Yeah. Well.
Two elements. The first one is the way we partially manage it is that some of the members got some discounts for good reasons. So first, we try to get rid of the discounts and saying this is too difficult to manage, it's too complicated for us. And anyway, if you value us, you shouldn't have a discount anymore. So that was the first layer. And I would say the second component in that type of exercise is, of course, benchmarking your competition. And Ioannis and I think we have, and of course in the crowd, I think we all have the same issues. First of all, us as a European association, our first competitors are the country national associations. And sometimes they ask much smaller budgets, sometimes comparable budgets. So of course we look at what they are doing and what would be the interest for one of our members located in one particular country to choose us over his national country association. So that's a discussion we often have. And sometimes, we do something completely different from what the National Association is doing. So it makes things much more easier in terms of comparison for us. So that's one. And of course, the biggest competitors as well are the conference organizers. Because of course, if they are 100% conference organizers, they go chase the same pockets than we are. And you can say, oh, but we are an association and we do conferences. But of course, the guy that is typically focused on organizing a conference once a year, which will have an easier commercial drive and can have a much more aggressive sales approach because everything will be settled around 2 or 3 days per year. And of course, not talking about the biggest global conference organizers who are organizing conferences over many different topics and many different countries. So on the second part, I must say that my good competitors of the conference organizers have not been shy, Eric, in raising prices. So at least that makes a very comparable price point for our members, telling them that, sometimes they have increased it much more than inflation. So in regards, we are very, very nice persons to work with.
Is there anything to add on that?
No, totally agree with what Thibaut said. Something that I can add perhaps on the conference organizers, you can see that if the association is performing well, then conference organizers, they cannot compete in quality. They might be able to compete in quantity for a while, but over the years, what an association offers is a constant dialogue. It's a discussion that comes in different stops, in different intervals throughout the year. So when you reach to the big conference, then it's a continuation of what has been said before and what will be said after. People who only organize conferences once a year, they miss that and they miss the engagement of the people. So it's very abstract what they discuss, and the quality eventually drops. So Thibaut, your association is new, but I'm pretty sure that you will surpass the conference organizers very fast.
Thank you so much, Yanis.
I guess on that topic, let's talk about competition. So again, and I think both of you mentioned, certainly there's associations at the local country level, and then of course at the EU level. How do you balance that conversation between sort of competition and cooperation?
That's the most difficult topic I've had for the last 5 years.
Mm.
Many associations come to me and say, hey, we are treating a very similar scope, a very similar topic matter than you guys. We love you, you love us, let's collaborate. And then your trouble starts, right? Because of course, you realize that basically we all have the same business models, right? All the associations, they want to have more members. So if you start by making a deal like, okay, my members can attend your event and your members can attend my event, it's a lose-lose situation. So someone's gonna lose into that. It's a cannibalization for sure, and it's a very blurry image for your members. So if you don't want to do that, what can you do? The thing I'm trying to do is to say, okay, provided that our annual conference is not on the same date, maybe I can promote yours and you can promote mine. But even that simple idea, I realized actually is extremely difficult to implement. So it's still a mystery to me. How can that be solved? So Ioannis, I'm all ears. If you have an idea of any idea from the crowd, I would be delighted.
I haven't solved it myself, but I agree with what you say. I think that these kind of situations dilute the message, and it makes it more confusing for the members to know which conference they are following and what the quality of that conference is about. I believe that eventually everybody finds their own markets, and trying to understand your niche, trying to understand what your members want, and trying to understand where you should be active differentiates you from the rest. And eventually, people will be able to understand where the differentiation lies. And usually, in the case of associations, it is on quality.
Quality has to be maintained regardless, right? At the end of the day, people are going to come back because you provided them a quality service or product. Another sort of area that, again, has been something people have been selling for a while, and obviously the internet and internet, I would say AI has partly changed that as well, is, research projects and the ability to sell information. In the organizations that you guys are associated with, is that something, a product that you guys provide to members, which is industry insights, research, and how do you balance between what gets used for maybe some marketing promotion, free to the public, versus something that's available only to members? And is there a revenue strategy associated with those products?
So the way we organize it is that we call them projects first, and we try to have one main sponsor of the project, which makes things very visible, because at least one of the member position itself on the topic of the project, and they have to fund it. So with us, the bill is around 35K, which is quite significant. And they get all the brand image associated with that project. So now you could say, oh, Thibaut, this is a bit biased, right? The project sponsor is going to impose his views on the project's objective. Yes, that's what he pays for. But at least the system is transparent. It is known to the other members. So the other members are invited to participate. If they don't like the sponsor, well, that be it. They can finance their own project if they want to. So that's how we solve it. And I know it's not the typical way, but we found out that it's the most understandable way.
In my experience, I think the key there is to explain to your members, even to the rest of the community, how the benefits of that project can, in the end, trickle down to the rest of the membership, so that everybody benefits and you're not picking sides, which is sometimes a bit crucial. When it comes to ESA, the different projects are all connected with what we do mainly during the year, which is producing knowledge for association executives. We had a couple of initiatives in the last couple of years. For example, we did a remuneration study for association professionals. We did the toolkits from time to time about the main responsibilities of an association secretary general throughout the year. These things, we have them for free for our members, but only for members. So it is an incentive in our case for more professional association managers to join ESA. And the bigger that we grow in volume, the more influence we have, which gives us more opportunity to seek out sponsorship activities and sponsorship opportunities and another kind of revenue diversification opportunities as well. So we do produce a lot of new knowledge through specific projects, but have them accessible to everyone, because the main purpose of ESA, the main mission, is to spread the knowledge. So as long as that is achieved, we don't want to charge specifically for that.
Another way we have dealt with this is that the outcome of a project is generally a white paper, which is public and available to everyone. But the raw data that we collected within the project is only accessible to members, just one way.
Any other, at least within that, what kind of feedback have you gotten on the raw data? Is that something that they're asking for, or is that something that was sort of developed over time that you guys found as a useful tool?
Well, we had it anyway, so we said, okay, let's make it kind of exclusive access. And then the feedback we got is that it was extremely useful, at least for some of the members, which makes it worthwhile in itself. And as you know, one of the biggest challenges is, we have important fixed costs. And in a project, it's the same thing. If you have some raw data, or if you have developed some material, or for example, what we also done is that we made accessible the whole library of documents that we had collected to produce our own. And some of the members said, "Oh, this is really great. At least you guys have done the work, and I can benefit from it." But for us, it was a sunk cost anyway.
For us, it was a new initiative. We didn't have these projects before, and we launched them in collaboration with some of our partners. Some of them, they helped us financially. Some of them, they helped us in kind. Some of them with a combination of in-kind and financial aid. And as I mentioned, the benefits of these initiatives, they were accessible to all the members to benefit from, which is something that they very much appreciated.
Let's switch gears a little bit to organizational structure. So obviously you both are the heads of your organization. Sales is naturally part of what you have to do, obviously, in order to drive membership. But how do you think the structure of your organization and the responsibilities of the team members to helping to drive that new revenue, but also memberships and the other things that are related to increasing revenue in the organization?
On our end, we try to, even for the younger teammates, or even if they are dedicated to content or to marketing and communication, I always give them 1 or 2 members to chase. It's part of their exercise. So they can contact them. They are introduced to them during our events, and I tell them, it's your prey. So go ahead. Yanis?
In my case, well, we have a lot of members, individual members. What I see as an organic position rising in associations in general across Europe is that of community management. And we have established at TSA a position of community manager who is responsible of the current members, while me as the managing director, I chase after new potential members. Fortunately, in that job, I'm being helped by my board of directors and another volunteer leaders who are very happy to spread the word about ESA. So that makes my work more easy. But when it comes to the engagement, continuous engagement throughout the year, and solving the questions and challenges of the existing members, I think that is a sector that we have grown a lot in at ESA recently, and there's a lot of room for improvement in associations in general.
How big? How many members in the association now, Johannes?
Members, we have 700 beneficiaries at ESA, coming from almost 300 different associations across Europe.
That's great. And so as you think about growth, how do you think about growth for the organization, and where is that going to continue to come from?
Well, when I joined about 6 years ago, we had only one source of revenue, which was membership fees. Eventually, we started adding new activities at ESA, and that helped us gain sponsorship. So we had 2 revenue streams, sponsorship and membership. Eventually, we introduced new initiatives like the European Association Awards and the European Association Summit, and now 1/3 of the budget of ESA comes from the European Association Summit and Awards. So it has organically grown in the last 6 years, and the more that we grow in activities, the more we attract the attention of different industries and different potential sponsors or other organizations out there who want to do business with us. So it has grown a lot already, but I see a lot of potential of growth, because in Brussels alone we have about 2,500 European and international associations. Throughout Europe, you can add about 1,000 more, especially in association hubs like Geneva, Zurich, Paris, Luxembourg, Amsterdam. So I would say that in our case, sky is the limit when it comes to membership acquisition and maturing the association management profession in Europe. So both when it comes to new members and to attracting new sponsors connected with the volume of our members, they go hand in hand, and there's a lot of good potential.
That's a good problem to have. Lots of opportunity. Well, for you all, do you have a traditional sales process in going out? Do you have team members dedicated to sales? What is the structure that you guys are using to acquire new revenue?
Yes, so myself and the chief commercial officer are dedicated to the sales activities. And obviously, our main way to sell is to tease our future members by inviting them to our events and let them see how it goes. And that's basically the best way we found. They experience it, they love it, they become member, they don't like it, or so then my biggest problem becomes the freeloaders management, Eric. I think I can write a thesis about that. So that's how we do it. And otherwise, obviously, the traditional B2B sales technique with a mix of social media, emails, phone calls, but that's very traditional. But yeah, part of our organization is that we organize up to 30 physical events per year in different countries. So this is how we reach out to potential new members. And of course, as Ioannis said, you can have different definitions of our industries. You have the typical payment players, such as I mentioned, but of course, you can add to that banks, you can add to that even insurance companies, you can add to that all kinds of fintechs which are supporting the industry in some way. And of course, part of our sales strategy is to make sure we chase the most relevant targets.
So let's go through an example. If you guys are going into a country, maybe it's your second time hosting an event there, what would that process look like? You would go out and invite some people that you're not familiar with. Walk us through that for some folks who might be.
Yeah, so we have different ways. So obviously, LinkedIn plays a major part because we know per country which are the companies which are relevant. So that is our own internal research via different means. Based on that list, we invite the decision makers and CXOs in charge of those companies via LinkedIn mainly. And we are using, by the way, some automation tools on LinkedIn, which is another big debate, which would need an hour, but that's another one. And then from there, we invite them to our events. That is the mainstream. And of course, the other stream is that as we have members that are already present in that particular country, we can ask them introductions to their peers or to their local team, which will then help us to settle for the first time in that particular country. So that's how we proceed.
And what happens post-event?
Post-event, we do a follow-up with a typical sales presentation. Already in the thank you note that we program via GlueUp, we already include our membership brochure and the button for them to subscribe right away, which works from time to time. In 2 clicks, we have a new member, which is really great. But generally, we need some kind of a follow-up meeting. But at least, we have demonstrated what we can do. So they have seen what kind of people attend our event, they like it or not. But if they like it, then they should pay for it.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
One small thing to add that we do and it works well is collaborate with local partners. For example, when we do an event in Luxembourg or in Amsterdam, we collaborate with a local destination convention bureau or different members and or PCOs that we might have in our ecosystem, and we ask them to invite potential participants in our event. And definitely after the event, indeed, thank you email with a link to become a member.
And I guess on both sides, are either of you using a more traditional, at least post-event, sort of sales opportunity pipeline process? And is there somebody specifically managing that?
Yes, we do, but the way to manage it is more. I mean, our team will prepare, for example, all the pre-sales and post-sales documents, so at least everyone has a clear view to which company has been assigned as target within the team. And then it's a bit according to the interest that we fine-tune the approach. But at least it's very clear who is targeted which prospect.
Let me just ask one more thing on that for you, Thibault. Email versus phone. How do you guys reach out? Which one's more effective?
We are using all kinds. So obviously email. So emails, of course, send via GlueUp to start with. Then if it does not suffice, or in case we think it might have ended up in spam, personal email, but which have been prepared according to scripts as well by my team. So that helps a lot. We use WhatsApp a lot, by the way. We use Respond.io for that, and it proved to be quite efficient. Especially via WhatsApp, you can send a small video. So we have small videos about our events, about our offer, and so it's a very nice thing to send via WhatsApp. It works quite well, at least in terms of being seen. And then, of course, the ultimate challenge, which is the call. And of course, it's the most efficient. It's just finding the time to do them and the discipline that every salesman has to have.
Otis, anything?
In my case, I try to meet as people as much as possible. I think that all of our members at DEC have had. I sat down and had a coffee with them, at least for 80 or 85% of them. So that's extremely important. Usually, the connection is being done via either LinkedIn or email. Not so many phone calls. I do make a lot of phone calls with current members to discuss how the membership is going and what kind of challenges they're facing, so that we can adapt our offering accordingly. But with potential prospect members, it's mainly email and LinkedIn, and trying to get them to meet them in person, either in Brussels if they're based here or in other cities in Europe. And I think that usually works for us is sometimes people are busy, oftentimes people are busy and they have other priorities. A relationship that starts now might materialize in a membership in a couple of years even. So it's not always immediate interaction. People start to get your newsletter, they get your updates on LinkedIn. Eventually, they understand the importance of becoming a member. And when they find the right time or they make time in their schedule, then they make the application and they start coming to your activities. So you cannot look at it as an immediate sales pitch because it takes a lot of time to mature.
It's a lot of coffee.
A lot of coffees, yes.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, we are coming to sort of the last few minutes here. I want to give anybody online who wants to drop a message in the chat, and we will get some final questions in before we wrap up. I'll give anybody a minute here. This is a good one for people. In general, how long is your sales cycle, and how do you measure it?
That's a very good one. We tend to count more in terms of number of interactions, and in a typical B2B process, I would say we have to go to 6 to 7 interactions. Interaction being attendance to events, calls, emails, etc. So yes, we are definitely talking in months, for sure.
For me, it varies a lot because it's more of a B2C kind of situation. Today, I had a first meeting with a potential member, and she agreed right on the spot to become a member. And she just sent the membership application an hour ago. With others, we might be knowing each other for years, and it doesn't translate into a membership application until years later. So it's very random. There's no typical sales call.
Okay.
The same thing with the sponsors, by the way. With some sponsors, it can be very immediate and indirect if they have a marketing budget for us. If not, it can take some cycles to mature.
Absolutely. Always a challenge. Yeah, I mean, in the corporate world, again, people talk about 10 touch points before, obviously people get to the point of being interested. So did they see people at an event? Did they see something online, social media, but generally 10 touch points is what people talk about in the corporate world. All right. How do you overcome rejection to cold call, email, and telephone calls? It's always a fun one.
Perhaps I can start with that. Before I became an association manager, I used to be an artist. I used to be a photographer. So in photography, the one thing that I learned is to get accustomed with failure. When you photograph as much as I did, 99.9% of your pictures they end up in failure. They end up not being nice or good or proper to be printed and shown in an exhibition. So I got used to not getting answers or not to be successful from the first shot. But I found that eventually, of course, you become better, you become good, but you have to convince yourself that you cannot get them all. You have to be picky. People are picky, but the people that you end up working with, make sure to make a good alignment of your mission, vision, and goals.
Yes, on our end, we try to adopt a multiple entry strategy. So if one doesn't pick up, we try the other. If marketing doesn't pick up, we try sales. If sales doesn't pick up, we try PR. And definitely we make good notes in GlueUp, by the way, of people that have shown not being courteous. So we remember that not only to prioritize ourselves, but also in case they show interest to attend our events for free, Eric. So again, I can write a thesis about freeloaders management.
Hey, there's always good food at events, right? So, you get people who just come for food sometimes, but at the end,
Absolutely.
hopefully that conversion rate is high and obviously revenue increases in the end. And again, to wrap up, hopefully, everybody took away, some tool tidbit that's going to help drive revenue. Again, this is obviously a much larger conversation, and obviously we didn't touch upon everything that's possible, but organizational structure and certainly managing a sales process, how you're looking at an organization and the opportunities that exist, from what the board is able to really have conversations on, to think about new ways of generating revenue, to really being able to make sure that the team is constantly coming up with creative ideas. But I think at the end of the day, when we talk about sales and potential new revenue sources, the idea is always that there's going to be failures. You have to be okay with that. Somebody's going to say no to a sales call. Sometimes new revenue sponsorship ideas aren't going to work, and you're going to move on to the next one. But the key thing is, I think, as any organization, is how do you keep moving forward for the mission, but also continue to strive forward as an organization continues to grow and become more successful. But I want to pass it back over to Ksenia here, and thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you everyone for joining. We will be sharing the recording of the session with everyone who's attended. And I hope to meet you all again at our next educational webinar.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you all.
you. See you
Great
soon
rest
in
of your day.
Luxembourg, Brussels, or elsewhere.
Next
Have a nice
time.
day.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.